President Muhammadu Buhari yesterday notified the National Assembly of his resolve to withhold assent to the Electoral Act Amendment Bill 2021 in line with the provisions of Section 58 of 1 and 4 of the 1999 Constitution as amended. The President, in a letter to the leadership of the National Assembly exclusively obtained by this day, clearly highlighted his reason for refusing to sign the bill into law. Buhari, whose letter to the lawmakers was obtained by this day on the last day of the 30th day stipulated in the Constitution for him to communicate his position on the bill, stressed that political parties should be allowed to freely exercise rights of choice in deciding which of either direct or indirect primaries to adopt in conduct of their primary elections as their respective realities might permit. He argued that direct primaries, as envisaged by the Electoral Act Amendment Bill 2021, will significantly raise the cost of conducting primary elections by political parties and could have negative implications on the outcome of the elections. In the letter titled Withholding of Assent to Electoral Act Amendment Bill 2021, Buhari stated, further to the later dated 18th November 2021, forwarded for presidential assent, the Electoral Act Amendment Bill 2021, as passed by the National Assembly, have received informed advice from relevant ministries, departments, and agencies of the government, and have also carefully reviewed the bill in light of current realities prevalent in the Federal Republic of Nigeria and the circumstances. He pointed out that arising from the review, it was worthy of note that the conduct of elections for the nomination of party candidates solely via direct primaries as envisaged by the Electoral Act Amendment Bill 2021 has serious adverse legal, financial, economic and security consequences which cannot be accommodated at the moment considering our nation's peculiarities. This, Buhari further said, also has implications on the right of citizens to participate in the government as constitutionally ensured. He explained, the Electoral Act Amendment Bill 2021 seeks to amend certain provisions of the Extant Electoral Act 2010. Part of the objectives of the bill is the amendment of the present Section 87 of the Electoral Act 2010 to delete the provision for the conduct of indirect primaries in the nomination of party candidates such that party candidates can henceforth only emerge through direct primaries. The conduct of direct primaries across the 8,809 wards across the length and breadth of the country will lead to a significant spike in the cost of conducting primary elections by parties, as well as increase in the cost of monitoring such elections by INEC, who has to deploy monitors across these wards each time a party is to conduct direct primaries for the presidential, gubernatorial, and legislative posts. The addition of these costs with the already huge cost of conducting general elections will inevitably lead to huge financial burden on both the political parties, INEC, and the economy in general at a time of dwindling revenues. Furthermore, the president held that the indirect consequences of the issues of high cost and monetization were that it will raise financial crimes and constitute further strain on the economy. It will also stifle smaller parties without the enormous resources required to mobilize all party members for the primaries, he said. According to him, this will not only be healthy for the circumstance of multi-party democracy in Nigeria, in addition to increased costs identified above, conducting and monitoring primary elections across 8,809 wards would pose huge security challenges as the security agencies will also be overstretched. Direct primaries will be open to participation from all and sundry, and such large turnouts without effective security coordination will also engender intimidation and disruptions, thereby raising credibility issues for the outcomes of such elections. The amendment as proposed is a violation of the underlying spirit of democracy, which is characterized by freedom of choices. Political party membership is a voluntary exercise of the constitutional right to freedom of association. Several millions of Nigerians are not card-carrying members of any political party. Thus, the emphasis should be on enabling qualified Nigerians to vote for the candidate of their choice during general election as a means of participation in governance and furtherance of the concept of universal adult suffrage or universal franchise. Additionally, he noted that the proposed amendment might also give rise to plethora of litigations based on diverse grounds and issues of law, including but not limited to the fact that the proposed amendment cannot work in retrospect, given the existing constitution of the parties already registered with the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) permits direct and indirect and consensus primaries. This real possibility will without doubt truncate the electoral program of the nation, as another electoral exercise is imminent towards the change of government in 2023. Nigeria is at the moment still grappling with the issue of monetization of the political process and vote buying at both party and general election. The direct implication of institutionalizing only direct primaries is the aggravation of over one monetization of the process, as there will be much more people a contest needs to reach out to, thereby further fueling corruption and abuse of office by incumbent contestants who may resort to public resources to satisfy the increased demands and logistics of winning party primaries, he argued. Buhari also insisted that direct primaries would be subjected to manipulations or malpractices, as most parties cannot boast of reliable and verified membership register or valid means of identification, which therefore means non-members could be recruited to vote by wealthy contestants to influence the outcome. Rival parties can also conspire and mobilize people to vote against a good or popular candidate in a party during its primaries just to pave way for their own candidates, whereas where voting is done by accredited delegates during indirect primaries, the above irregularities are not possible. The major conclusions arrived at upon the review are highlighted hereunder, to wit, aside its serious adverse legal, financial, economic, and security consequences, the limitations or restrictions of the nomination procedures available to political parties and their members constitute an affront to the right to freedom of association. It is thus undemocratic to restrict the procedure or means of nomination of candidates by political parties, as it also amounts to undue interference in the affairs of the political parties. Indirect primaries or collegiate elections are part of internationally accepted electoral practices. More so, direct primaries are not free from manipulations and do not particularly guarantee the emergence of the will of the people, especially in circumstances like ours, where it is near impossible to sustain a workable implementation framework or structure thereof. In the premise of the above, I hereby signify to the National Assembly that I am constrained to withhold assent to the Electoral Act Amendment Bill 2021 in line with the provisions of Section 58, 1 and 4 of the 1999 Constitution as amended. It is my considered position that the political parties should be allowed to freely exercise right of choice in deciding which of direct or indirect primaries to adopt in the conduct of their primary elections, as their respective realities may permit. Please accept the assurance of my highest consideration and esteem, Buhari stated.